Welcome back everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I make a butcher's block cutting board made up of leftover scrap and boards at the back of my shop. I do 2 big cleanups per year in my shop. I do a fall cleanup and I do a spring cleanup. And so going into fall is the perfect time to take some of those hardwood offcuts and make yourself some butcher block cutting boards. So building a butcher's block countertop is how I convinced my wife initially that I needed a thickness planer. Of course, she got a nice butcher's block countertop out of the deal. It's gonna be kind of hard to do this without a thickness planer. If you have a friend who has a thickness planer, hit them up because you will need one for this project. It's not impossible to do it with a hand plane, but it takes a lot longer. Some of the wood that's been hanging around my shop for the last year or so, I've got some scrap walnut. I've got this 1 4-foot length of western maple, and I've got some scrap eastern maple. Because it's been hanging around for about a year, I want to purge. Best way to do that is to use it in a cutting board. This 1 scrap of black walnut is about the size that I'm looking for. I want it to face edge up like this, and then we'll have 1.5 inches thickness throughout the board. I know I want it to be a maximum of 12 inches wide by 18 inches. So 12 by 18 inches, and get at least 1 decent sized cutting board out of it. Before I get a comment on this, I know and I do realize that I have some end grain on these pieces because they were previously laminated, and now I've trimmed them down and repurposed them for this. And that's okay. I'm mixing edge grain with end grain. Some people are fussy about that. I'm not. I put down some wax paper ahead of time because scraping glue off of plywood is not fun, if not impossible. So I tend to avoid scraping glue off plywood. I'm going to use Titebond 2 because that's what I have on hand, but if you've got Titebond 3, that might even be better because it will be waterproof. And I've had pretty good success using Type 2 with cutting boards, just my own cutting boards, but if I were to do this for a client, I might be inclined to use Type 3. I'm going to use a generous amount of glue. I'll tell you that in my experience, when you're doing butcher's blocks, a generous amount of glue is exactly what you need. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure everything is more or less lined up to one end, just so it's easier to trim it later. It's not going to be 100% even, but I'm looking at my shortest piece right now, and that's going to be the closest trim, so I think we're pretty good. And we start to slowly tighten. Now for the top, just to make it easier to clean up later, I'm going to take some of my sawdust and just rub it in on top of it, just to take up some of that excess glue. This is actually a mix of some of the maple and walnut sawdust that I'm using. Of course, this is all going to go through the thickness planer in the end. I'm going to just double check how I'm doing on my width. 11 7/8. That's actually pretty good. We're pretty much even all the way across, so I'll still have to square this up at the end. We have a lovely mess, and we're going to let that glue up for the rest of the day. Take that out. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to just scrape that down. I'm going to lay this side down flat on 3 stickers that will sit on a flat surface going through the thickness planer. Basically, it'll sit on a sled, and then I'll flip it around and do this side. I make my stickers out of plywood so the thickness is even. One smooth side to work with. That's starting to look more like a cutting board. $80, $120, $150. So here I am in the kitchen. I'm going to use the kitchen countertop to do the oiling. I don't like to do it in the workshop because I just don't want to get the work surface all oily, and I don't want to have to deal with the mess. So I'm going to use this mineral oil. This is pure natural mineral oil. I'm going to use this because it's food safe, it's non-toxic. This is the same stuff that you use to recondition the butcher's block, and you want to do that every once in a while. You want to take care of it. You want to make sure that it's got a long life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a generous portion on here, and then I'm going to take this cloth and just rub it in. And this has actually got a nice, almost like a lemon scent to it. This end grain really comes up nice and dark. The oil is fully absorbed into the wood, The wood will basically tell you when it's time to put more oil onto it. You'll see the wood will get dry and a little dull. The next thing I'm going to apply to it to protect it even further is just beeswax that I picked up at my local hardware store. It's good quality, I've used it before, and I'll use it on this board as well. Well, that concludes making a butcher's block cutting board using a combination of edge grain and end grain. Even though it's the same black walnut, the end grain takes on a much darker tone than the edge grain, and it gives you this beautiful effect. And I don't know if you can really see it all that well with this lighting, but once you get the oil on there, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to this channel, either through Patreon or through my donation page. It really helps me to continue to make and edit these videos, and I thank each and every one of you. If you want to help out, head on over to my donation page right over here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. There are a couple more videos on this side you can watch. Until next time, thanks for watching, and have a great day.